Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three martinis coming up.
Happy Monday, everyone. We actually do have a good martini, but it's a really twisted one. Good, bad, and crazy today on the Three Martini Lunch. Glad you're with us. Your stool is ready. We're brought to you today by Gabby. Right now, you can take 2 minutes to see how much you can save on your car and homeowner's insurance. Go to Gabi, GABI.com/martini. So, Jim, this was originally going to be a legit good martini, and then I realized what exactly was involved here. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan is the subject of a recall petition in Seattle, which, of course, you're thinking, well, yeah, she let these people take over this neighborhood. Dereliction of duty, of course she ought to be recalled. So the effort's going forward, but not for the reasons you might think. Associated Press. A King County Superior Court judge has approved a petition for an election to recall Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan. The Seattle Times reports the ruling Friday on charges filed by a group of 5 people last month, which came after weeks of local protests against racism and police brutality sparked by the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. The Durkan petitioner's recall effort accuses the mayor of, quote, endangering the peace and safety of the community by allowing police to leak false information about fabricated crimes and threats to the media, and issuing a citywide curfew without sufficient notice to the public. The petitioners also accused Durkan of restricting certain property rights in downtown Seattle and Capitol Hill, the neighborhood where many of the protests took place. The mayor's office says that Durkan consistently acted to protect the city's public health and safety and to respect the constitutional rights of protesters. So, Jim, there's a lot of good reasons for Jenny Durkan to be removed from office, or at least be on the ballot to be recalled. But the lefties get the first crack at this. What do you make of this?
Some people might say, this is terrible. Actually, no. I think any day there's an effort to get Jenny Durkan out of office is a good day. And I think what's useful here is the illustrative point. The headline of the Morning Jolt on Friday was, "You are never woke enough." I use the example of people who are upset about Hamilton, which had been praised to high heavens just 5 years ago. The lesson for Durkan here is not that, well, I should have let that rebellious enclave keep going. It's fine. The lesson is, if at some point you're going to have to stand up to the mob, or else you completely concede your city to the mob entirely. And if you're going to have to pay the price for standing up to the mob, better to do it early. Get it out of the way. Don't let it fester for a long time, because then you've got the people who are mad about letting the Capitol Hill, the Capitol Hill Autonomous District, people lose their lives. And by the time you're intervening, it is too late in the eyes of the folks who want order and stability and who are not supportive of Chad. And of course, the people who are supportive of Chad are outraged you let the cops go in. They're outraged at the idea that Chad could have possibly been an environment where violence could flourish. And they're going to try to get rid of you anyway. So there really isn't a particularly good middle of the road, little bit of this, a little bit of that. We'll have a halfway level of anarchy. We're going to, defund the cops halfway, or, look, this, you're talking about a movement that is, at least from my perspective, extremist. And I think from a lot of people who are the quote unquote silent majority, pretty darn extremist. And there really isn't any way to placate them. There really isn't any way to say, oh, if I do this and I say the right words, and if I do this thing, these people will be happy. They will never be happy. And so some sort of pushback against Durkan was almost inevitable, because for all of her flaws, and Lord knows Jenny Durkan has a huge list of flaws, she at least at some point recognized that at mayor she had some responsibility for public safety and had to do something. The mob will never want the people in leadership to ever take actions for public safety, because it means cracking down on the mob. That's the service. This is what makes it the good one. This is basically karma coming along to bite Jenny Durkan in the butt. I don't know if this is necessarily going to succeed, but as she looks at this and says, crazy lefties are launching this recall petition, there's no way this could ever succeed against me. Well, how many people are going to rush to the aid of Jenny Durkan at this moment? My guess is not many. The other thing I just kind of also had this stray thought as we're going through this, Greg. Can you believe that of all the crazy politicians we have had in the past generation, the only one off the top of my head that's been successfully recalled, Greg, is Clay Davis out in California? I mean, he was bad, but him? Really?
There's plenty who should be in that category. Absolutely. According to the AP, you need 50,000 Seattle voters to sign the petition to get this on the ballot. So it's been approved for circulation. So I'm sure these people with all their motivated rage will get right on that. It's just fun to me that, when all the business owners were saying, hey, these people are destroying our livelihood. No. Got to let it happen. Hey, there's huge crime happening there. Oh, no. Freedom of the speech. We got to let this play out. They're coming to your house. Whoa.
To quote Captain Jean-Luc Picard, the line must be drawn here. Right at her property line. And again, I guess this is, as I said, to emphasize the good part of this. Because Jenny Durkan didn't stand up for the businesses, didn't stand up for the cops, didn't stand up for anybody on that other side, none of them are going to come to her aid at this moment. And, 50,000 signatures? Greg, I'm pretty sure there are 50,000 people who are upset with Jenny Durkan right now. They may not agree with all the reasons on that petition, but they may still look at that as, it's an excuse for us to get her out of office. Let's do it. And, it couldn't happen to a nicer mayor, Greg.
We have another mayor to talk about in the next martini, but first we're going to talk about some actual good news here, and that's all the money you can save on your auto and homeowners insurance with Gabi. Because, look, we're all looking for ways to save money, especially right now. Times are tight. A lot of folks either without work or having to do with lesser income right now. So when's the last time you looked at how much you're spending every month on car insurance or on homeowners insurance? Well, now's the time to check out Gabi, Gabi, and see about getting a lower rate for the exact same coverage you already have.
Gabi takes the pain out of shopping for insurance by giving you an apples-to-apples comparison of your current coverage with 40 of the top insurance providers. We're talking about companies like Progressive, Nationwide, and Travelers. You just link your current insurance account, and in about 2 minutes, you will be able to see quotes for the exact same coverage you currently have. Gabi customers save $825 per year on average. And if they can't find you savings like they did for so many other customers, they'll let you know, so you can relax knowing you have the best rate out there. And they will never sell your info, so there's no more annoying spam or robocalls.
They say it takes 2 minutes. I'm not even sure it takes that long, honestly. There are 10 quick prompts, but as long as you know your name, your address, how old you are, things like that, you shouldn't have to look that stuff up probably. Then it gets you right to it. You link your current policy. They show you what you can get from other providers and get that exact same coverage. It really is that simple. It really is that quick. Fortunately, ours was in good shape. No need to switch. But it's like Jim just said, the peace of mind, knowing all that and knowing that the information you provided them isn't going to anyone else. That's just as important to me, certainly. And now it's totally free to check your rate, and there's no obligation at all. Take 2 minutes to see how much you can save on your car and homeowners insurance by going to Gabi.com/martini. That's Gabi.com/martini. Gabi.com/martini. All right, Jim, let's go to our bad martini now. And the corona wars are still raging fiercely. But now it's gone to an area where we kind of always knew it was going to go. And now it's just flaring up in a way that is going to be ugly. But let's talk about how both sides are screwing this up. The White House and Fauci don't like each other very much anymore. Apparently, Trump and Fauci haven't talked in quite a while. And now Fauci is suggesting some things I think we would strongly disagree with. Here he is with Anna Rothschild of 538 in a podcast. And she asks him, hey, how's the U.S. doing? And keep in mind when he gives this answer that Anna Rothschild is based in New York City.
How do you think the U.S. is doing right now? Like, just if you're looking across the world, what are your feelings about how we're doing right now?
Well, let me say there are parts of the United States, like where you live right now, that are doing really well, that you've been through something really bad and you have things under control and you have a governor and mayor in the city who understand what it means to go by the guidelines for the gateway, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So you're doing well. Other cities are doing well. But as a country, when you compare us to other countries, I don't think you can say we're doing great. I mean, we're just not.
So all you people that had the worst possible infection and death rate, you guys are awesome. So maybe you achieved herd immunity or something like that. And everybody that's struggling.
I was going to say, in New York, the dying has ended because they've run out of people. It's not quite the case, but the virus certainly seems to have plucked a good portion of the low-hanging fruit. This is really frustrating from Fauci. I almost feel like, it's going to be Fauci. You're killing me here. Although, actually, I probably should avoid the word killing metaphor when we're discussing a deadly virus. Look, those of us who've been reviewing the record extensively can point to a lot of bad mistakes by Bill de Blasio, insisting this was not contagious, this was not that bad, it was totally safe to use public transportation, et cetera, right up until about that second week in March, and telling people to go about their lives, and no problem with large gatherings and stuff. Cuomo, we've talked about sending the patients into the nursing homes and long-term care facilities. No, I don't think you can say that New York City and New York State have done a particularly good job, and I don't think you can say that Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio are the heroes of this pandemic. I do wonder, Greg, if the circumstance we see with Fauci is a little bit like the situation with the World Health Organization and China. That the World Health Organization knew that China was super sensitive to any form of criticism. And their attitude was, well, we're going to say they're doing a good job, and we're going to echo what they're telling us about the virus, and we're going to hope that what they're telling us is accurate. And we're going to do our best to keep this relationship going so that we get some level of cooperation. Because if we speak too honestly about what's actually going on the ground, they will stop cooperating with us, and we'll have no idea how things are going, and the situation will get worse. I kind of wonder if Fauci is in this I don't want to make enemies position. And thus, he doesn't want to spend a lot of time talking about all the mistakes that Bill de Blasio did and all the mistakes that Andrew Cuomo did. I mean, for starters, just recently, Bill de Blasio's stance was, I am barring all group activities, except Black Lives Matter protests. They're fine. They're cool. Apparently the virus isn't spread there. Fauci really wants to be seen as a straight shooter and an honest player. And I think when he does things like this, he undermines that. The second half, of course, of this, Greg, is that apparently the Trump administration is now releasing opposition research and assembling all the quotes where Fauci got wrong early on in this process, which is not like we need everybody singing from the same songbook here. And I guess probably, Greg, should they not do that because singing is apparently banned in California at churches? But anyway, the singing, that you'd like to have everybody in the government on the same page. And, Fauci's job is to be a doctor. It's not to be a policy. He doesn't have to worry about the economy. He should be, know his lane. He's very good at what he does. When he starts getting into these politicians are doing good and these politicians are doing bad, I think he's getting in over his skis a bit. But the idea that this White House is wasting time undermining Fauci is, look, if you don't have faith in the guy, fire him. We've been, people have been speculating that for a long time. This is not a time to play games. This is not a time. The job of Anthony Fauci is not to tell the president things he wants to hear. The job of Anthony Fauci is to speak the truth. And by the way, saying Bill de Blasio did a good job is not speaking the truth. Tell the president the truth and let the president has to make the policy decisions. And if Fauci believes the president is making the wrong decisions and it's terrible and he absolutely can't, then Fauci has the option of resigning. But at this point, the idea of having two chunks of the executive branch going to war with each other, each trying to undermine the other, is really not reassuring. And it's one of those things like, hey, pandemic's still going on. We still have a serious problem. For a long time, you could say deaths were going down. Last week, it started inching them back up again. Everybody needs to bring their A games and be grown-ups in this, and it just feels like it's starting to slide further and further away from us, Greg.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch here. I mean, Fauci has played the game well in Washington politically, of course, for the last almost 40 years now. But right now I'm thinking there's about a 50-50 chance he ends up on a stage with Biden before November. We'll see about that. All right, on to our crazy martini now, Jim. And while I was on vacation, the Washington Redskins, and I believe at the same time pretty much the Cleveland Indians, all of a sudden decided, thanks to a great deal of public pressure, that they were going to reevaluate their mascots. The Redskins, of course, the Washington football team, the Indians, the Cleveland baseball team. The Indians have not said what they're doing here yet, but as soon as they make announcements like these, something is going to change. And so the Redskins going first here. This is a 3-paragraph statement, which really could be summed up by, we're going to change the name because otherwise we're going to lose a lot of money. But this is what they really said. On July 3rd, we announced the commencement of a thorough review of the team's name. That review has begun in earnest. As part of this process, we want to keep our sponsors, fans, and community apprised of our thinking as we go forward. Today, we are announcing we will be retiring the Redskins name and logo upon completion of this review. Dan Snyder and Coach Rivera are working closely to develop a new name and design approach that will enhance the standing of our proud, tradition-rich franchise and inspire our sponsors, fans, and community for the next 100 years. So, Jim, there you go. That's the political way of phrasing this. A lot of people think that it's still going to start with an R. I guess they're keeping the color scheme. I've heard some reports there's no Native American imagery, so a lot of people who want it to be the Washington Warriors, I think, are going to be disappointed. I've seen Red Hawks, Red Tails. I know you want the Washington Red Tape, which would be the most accurate. So what do you make of the Redskins here? Are they cowing or just reacting to financial realities?
Yeah, first of all, a lot of people looked back to a quote from Dan Snyder quite a few years ago where he said, never, and he says you can print that in all capital letters, we will never rename the team. That up until fairly recently, Snyder and the general sense of the organization was, no, we don't care who's offended. Polling indicated, by the way, that Native Americans were not enormously outraged by this. The Native American communities of the United States have much bigger problems on their plate than what some team name is named. That having been said, I think it's safe to say if you were naming a team now, you would not pick the name Redskins. This isn't like the Florida Seminoles. This isn't referring to a specific tribe or organization. Redskins is arguably a slur. It's not, something that's it's literally the team color. It's literally the color of the skin. Yes, it's been around for a long time. Many people now associate it exclusively with the football team. But it was pretty. It's intriguing. I think what clearly the straw that broke the camel's back was the talk that FedEx was feeling pressure from shareholders and various other corporate sponsors of the team. They communicated. And, for all the flaws of Daniel Snyder, Greg, I think we have to give them some serious credit for the number of times in that letter they list people who have the importance of sponsors, fans, and community in that order. Sponsors first. Look, so here's the thing. Probably in the next 24 hours, and depending on when they announce the team name, you're going to hear, Daniel Snyder, one of the most hated people in Washington. Good on him. Gaia bless him. This guy's finally gotten it. He's woke. He's he's finally awakened to the horrors of this name. Yada yada yada. And oh, by the way, Daniel Snyder is probably going to make $1 billion on new revenue sales over the next couple of years. All your Redskins stuff in your closet, you can people will still wear it for a while, but eventually, when they come out with anything, and by the way, my current bet, if I had to bet, Greg, is Red Wolves. Fred Smoot. I don't know if for those who listen to DC area sports radio, Fred Smoot, the former team cornerback, has been enthusiastically pushing for that. Now, I should point out, though, that Fred Smoot, based on all of his radio appearances, seems like the kind of guy who cheerfully and enthusiastically does everything in life, including his taxes. Fred Smoot, I think probably if you asked him to read from the phone book, he would do it in an enthusiastic and passionate way. But he seems very into it. Seems to be getting a lot of traction on Twitter and other social media. There are some people who are going to see this as a terrible capitulation to the forces of political correctness and forces like that. I am rather intrigued by the observation from Liz Locker on Twitter, who's probably the closest friend I have, who's a deep, passionate Redskins fan, who observes, for those who are leaving and saying they will no longer support the team now that they've changed the letter. If changing the name was your breaking point, how did you last the last few years based on how they were playing on the field? I mean, if that didn't make you leave, it's kind of hard to believe that a name change is going to make you leave.
It's going to be interesting to see how easy it is to make the transition or how difficult, because most people still call them the San Diego Chargers a couple of years now after they've moved to L.A. So whatever they call this.
You and refs calling them the Baltimore Colts years later. I think I'm fairly certain I have referred to San Diego Chargers, the Colts. Everybody's going to call them the Oakland Raiders for at least the next 3 years.
That's true. Yeah, the Vegas Raiders. That's going to take a while to catch on, too. But I love this sentence at the beginning of the third paragraph. Dan Snyder, the owner, and Coach Rivera are working closely to develop a new name and design approach. Jim, what are they, 2 weeks from training camp supposedly here, and the coach is focused on the new name and the design approach? So the good news for Eagles, Cowboys, and Giants fans is, regardless of the new name, the dysfunction that has permeated this organization for the past quarter century will be intact, I assure you.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But I'm looking forward to that first game. If they don't have one, they just, the hail to whoever, hail victory.
Oh, That's I'll see if they change the words to that. That's the one thing I like about the Redskins is that melody. I think that's a catchy tune.
For a franchise, as much as you and I enjoy picking on them, they have this terrific tradition going back to the days of, Jack Kent Cooke and Gibbs and the Fun Bunch and Doug Williams and, 70s, Riggins, 70s, 80s, and, into the early 90s. This was a fun team. And, then Snyder took over and it became the Jeff George era. Some deep cuts for all of our sports-focused listeners.
Oh, man. Well, there had to be at least some ongoing dysfunction. I mean, the other sports teams in town have been too good lately, the Nationals and the Capitals in particular, but the Redskins are keeping everything in balance with just how out of step they are with everything. So,
and for some of our listeners who have forgotten, sports were these activities that we used to do before the pandemic. They're allegedly coming back someday.
Yeah, let's see if there even is a season. By the time they play football again, they may well have the name pretty well entrenched. Jim, happy Monday. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos, Radio America. Thank you for being with us today. Don't forget about our friends over at Gabi. Take 2 minutes and find out how much you can save on your car insurance and your homeowner's insurance. Gabi, GABI.com/martini. Also, please subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a kind review. Get us on those home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. And join us again Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.